the CIA specifically contacted the developers on Bitcoin and said, hey, we are interested in this. Can you come and meet with us and explain this to us?
For small value, high volume, international payments, digital assets, and XRP in particular, are absolutely perfect. So if you can grease the wheels of commerce, and payments are certainly one of the pain points, then things move much more quickly and commerce happens much more, and you create growth as a result.
Central banks are there. We are seeing faster payments, smart contracts, e-money, crypto assets, stable coins, and CBDC, as you mentioned.
Ripple is registered as a money transmitter, and they got sued by the government, Department of Justice and FinCEN, and they had a settlement in 2015, and they paid $700,000, and they were told you have to register all your sales of XRP through FinCEN. And that happened in 2015, and then of course 5.5 years later, the SEC comes down and says, oh, by the way, it's also a security. So what we really need is Congress to step in and authorize the right agency to govern cryptocurrency.
The one thing that the SEC was arguing most vociferously was this idea that XRP, the digital asset that Ripple uses in our technology, was a security. And that was really what they cared about. And what the judge ruled is that XRP is not a security. And that's really been a formative case for the industry.
If you think of Circle and Ripples and all those, that's where they are active and helpful.
I was actually brought on to Ripple. I was pulled out of Google. They brought me on to lead their global talent acquisition team. My first delve into digital assets was back in 2014 when I bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase. My friends at Amazon were buying this Bitcoin stuff, and I threw about $10,000 into this Bitcoin, and ended up selling it maybe a year later. Didn't touch it or delve back into the space until Ripple came calling.
What's going on, family, friends? Happy Taco Tuesday. Hope you're all having a great jump to your week. Welcome back to another exclusive and much anticipated live stream. Today, we have with us Sean McBride, an experienced talent acquisition leader, formerly Ripple's Director of Global Talent Acquisition. Sean is an ex-Google recruiting leader, an ex-Amazon recruiting manager, but most importantly, he's a respected voice in the XRP community, always and forever. So Sean, with that being said, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Ray. Thanks so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Yeah, it is. It's much overdue because I've been trying to get you into this virtual metaverse type environment for quite some time, ever since the XRP Las Vegas conference. What have you been up to since then?
A lot, man. A lot. Just been busy with the family, the two little girls, and traveling back and forth to California, and in between Las Vegas and California here.
So I didn't know you have two daughters.
Two, yes. We have a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old.
Okay,
busy.
Maybe I. So you didn't have the one at XRP. You only had one at XRP Las Vegas then.
We just had the 3-month-old, I think, at XRP Las Vegas, which is the reason why I couldn't be there full time. Yeah.
Got it. Well, kudos to you. And from one fellow girl dad to the next, we are absolutely blessed. And
Yes,
it sure is. It's quite a learning experience, and to say the least. Holy smokes. Yes. But hey, shifting gears here, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to, in the beginning or the intro clip, you touched on during your previous interview a couple weeks ago with Chip and Jeff. You mentioned that you got into Bitcoin earlier on because of your Amazon friends. Ripple may have swooped you up from your days at Google. I want to talk about, who is Sean? What did Ripple see in you when you were at Google? What happened in that transition? Stage is yours, sir.
Yeah, that's a good question. Ripple, I was actually with Google when Ripple came calling. And when I was at Google, I was supporting the cloud department, supporting Urs, who was the kind of leader of the infrastructure team at Google. Actually named our pet mini pig after him. Funny story. But I supported Urs and all of his. Urs was a senior vice president at Google. He was the kind of king of the infrastructure. He was the first engineer at Google and supported all of his vice presidents. It was kind of like a chief of staff. It was a different different type of role than I was used to. And it was, essentially um, very data oriented, living in the data of talent acquisition, making recommendations to him and his vice president, sharing the data around talent acquisition. Where do we need to make improvements? How are we doing against hiring goals and targets? What's our time to hire? What's our rate of hire? How are we doing against those metrics? And how are we looking in terms of the number of hires that we need to make in terms of our regions globally? Where do we need to shift our priorities? How are we looking towards our programs? All of those things, and also kind of bringing our thousands of talent acquisition professionals together and understanding that holistically, crunching all of those things and bringing it back to those VPs and making those recommendations. So I think from Ripple's perspective, they were looking for someone that had that global experience, had that experience living in kind of the data, the analytics, someone who'd managed large programs, someone who could come in and bring those programs, analytics, those pieces together. Someone who's managed, large talent acquisition teams, which I did at Amazon, not something I did at Google, but at Amazon, I had a large talent acquisition team in North America with multiple sites, teams in New York, Palo Alto, Seattle, Boulder. And then, of course, at Ripple, had teams in Singapore, London, Dublin, San Francisco, New York.
So with this very decentralized type of operations, let's just say being underpinned by data, that's very, very important, especially if you're trying to capture all these moving parts and corral them into one friendly user interface potentially. I would love to explore the changes or nuances that you experienced or noticed within the job market. But before we do, I kind of want to put a pin in that and come back to that in just a second. I want to talk about the relationship between you and Ripple a little bit more. When they first knocked on your door, which was, I believe, around 2021, shortly after the lawsuit, what were your thoughts? What was it about Ripple that and their culture that captivated you and said, hey, despite what's going on, I feel confident enough to join this team?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the recruiter that reached out to me had a really good relationship with the executive team. She knew a number of the executives really well, so she was able to talk intimately about the culture, about the executive team, about their leadership style, about the values of the company, about the principles, the leadership principles. So that really helped me make my decision much more easy. So I think that really helped. They had a really good, solid leadership team, which really drew me to the company. The values really drew me to the company. The financial stability and the runway that they had, no debt. That was huge, and the amount of runway that they had as a company was really eye opening to me. The technology and the fact that they were building on something that was meant for the future, and something that really drew me in. Coming from the Amazons and the Googles that had already been there, that had already done that, and something that I had been a part of, building and growing in the past. That really excited me. So
this is par for the course for your startup career in essence.
Exactly, and it was something new and exciting, something I'm a builder, and I like learning, and I'm a very curious person. So I think, having done that before at Amazon and having experienced that and really thriving in that environment, and then moving on to Google and trying something new there, and being approached by Ripple and having someone approach me that was very, very excited and knowledgeable in that space, and getting me very excited about it. it was, it really drew me in.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it was, she explained it was a very transparent environment, which, coming in and experiencing that, where, you had a weekly all hands meeting where Brad would get up in front of the entire company, and you'd have an all hands meeting where Brad, or if Brad was not available, an executive would get up every week and speak in front of the entire company. That was, give you an update on for example, the SEC versus Ripple case. Every week you get an update on that. Get an update on our financials. You get an update on, progress in one particular product area of the company, and what that product area was working on. You get an update from Dave in engineering, who's the SVP of engineering, and what the engineering teams are working on a weekly basis. So that was awesome.
Would the updates in regards to the lawsuit come from someone like Stu Alderati or
Yes.
another? Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. How exciting is that? Right from I mean, you have front row seats, being that you're wearing Ripple's jerseys. Good for you. Yeah. I want to ask, because I put up on the screen here we'll get to the Ripple rebrand of their website here shortly, but on before I skip this thought, at XRP Las Vegas, which you were present at, Simon McLaughlin had mentioned on stage, who is a Ripple partner. Uphold is a Ripple partner. Simon McLaughlin being the CEO of Uphold. He mentioned that Uphold aspires to be at the center of everyone's financial lives, which I would then say by default, Ripple would be right there next to him in the trenches. What are your thoughts? Do you think Ripple has the chops to be at the heart of everyone's financial lives? And if so, why?
So that's a really interesting question. I don't know if they're going to be at the heart of everyone's financial lives, because I think Ripple is going to be hiding in the background of everyone's financial lives, right? They're going to be playing in the background. They're not going to be the PayPals. They're not going to be in front and center of everyone's lives. You're not going to, when you're going to think of finance as a consumer, as a retail investor, you're not going to think of Ripple. Like, that's not going to be the first thing that comes to mind. Ripple's going to be moving trillions and trillions of dollars in the background, and you're probably not going to be thinking of them. They're going to be working with institutional investors. They're going to be working with banks, moving this money, seamlessly in the background, and you're not going to think twice about it. It's just going to work.
I think you and I will be thinking about him.
Yeah, you and I will be thinking about it. XRP investors will be thinking about it, and people who know Ripple and know XRP will be thinking about it. But the everyday American, the everyday person, won't even think about it. They'll just be very happy and content with their money moving much more faster, much easier, much less expensively than normal. And I think that's what'll happen. And I think the Ripple's partners will be front and center. But I think Ripple will be in the background, happily transferring, and maybe their products will be front and center, but Ripple will be in the background doing things silently.
Yeah. Understood. What I had on the screen just a moment ago was Ripple's rebrand of the website. Let me pull it back up. Excuse me. And then I haven't even
seen it yet.
Yeah, it came up. I was looking at the webpage a couple days ago, and I was like, oh, they rebranded the homepage. And little did I, continue diving deeper, as far as this is all, I believe, to put up on a pedestal their RLUSD. And to that point, let me pull up the actual page. What I think will encourage, obviously, the movement of trillions of dollars, which we're already seeing from other market participants in the stablecoin arena, like Circle, where let me bring up on the screen for this topic or this conversation. I also, when I was out in New York for the Ripple Proper Party, Circle had an event the same day, and Jeremy Allaire, Circle CEO, had mentioned up on stage that since the inception of USDC, their stablecoin, they had already processed over $12 trillion in transactions. This was by September of last year. So they've probably already had many trillions to that pile now of transactions. Now to that point, Ripple's coming out with their RLUSD. They're going to take a market share, especially with what's going on with Tether, which we'll get into a little bit later as well. But what are your thoughts? What do you think the launch of RLUSD will do for Ripple's overall book of business?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Obviously, for their overall book of business, I think it's going to really expand their book of business. I think it's going to add to their product suite, obviously, and really help them outside of their CBDC book of business. But I think when you really look at it, 70% of central banks are still exploring the design and issuance of CBDCs. So that's not, I really don't think that's going to go away. So that's still an important part of their business. But I think where this stable coin is going to step in is where, for instance, in the US, we're not going to be going towards that CBDC route. And I think that's where the stable coin comes into play. And I think, the stable coin, it can be backed by, private money. Whereas the CBDC is backed by a government issued money or government issued currency.
Would you on that comment? Would you say then? I mean, because ultimately Circle is using U.S. short-term Treasury bills, which Ripple will be doing the same. Would that be government? I mean, those are government issued.
Sure. It can be government issued on the stable coin as well, but you can use, but the CBDC is going to be using only government issued currencies.
Okay.
If you're looking at the stable coin, it's only going to be private issued, it can be government issued, but it's only going to be the stable coin. The CBDC is only going to be using government issued.
Got it.
And the stable coin, it can be either on ledger or off ledger.
Okay.
On or off blockchain.
Really?
Yes.
Which would then be potentially why they're using Ethereum or other chains for, would it be the smart contract functionality for ZK proofs of what you want disclosed, what you want public or non?
Exactly.
Interesting. Very cool. Anything else you'd like to talk about in regards to RLUSD?
What can I talk about? Honestly, I don't know when the launch is going to actually happen. So I can't even tell you when that's going to happen. I think some are speculating that it's going to happen after the SEC versus Ripple case is ended. I don't necessarily think that's the case. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but some are saying that they're delaying the launch until that happens. But
do you think that this could go all the way? The case could go all the way to the Supreme Court then, or is there a potential settlement any moment, like people hope?
I don't think there's going to be a settlement. I think Torres will make her decision, and I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen soon. I mean, it has to happen soon. I think she'll, she has until the end of September. I think Brad was pretty accurate. By the end of summer, she'll make her decision. We'll see what the decision is, and I think it'll be a positive one. And I think you'll likely see the SEC appeal. Doesn't matter if they do or not, the decision will be made. And I think that will open up the doors for a flood to happen.
I like the sounds of that. On the topic of flip of the switch,
yeah,
I'm switching gears here, make this a little bit lighthearted. Now, being at your tenure at Ripple, did you ever cross paths with David Schwartz in the coffee room?
I've never seen David like that. That's for sure.
So you don't know what if he prefers either a peanut butter and jelly sandwich versus a ham sandwich?
So funny enough, David's in New York. He's based in New York. I've never seen David in an office. The only time I've interacted with him, the only time I've interacted with him is at the Miami 10 when at Ripple's 10-year anniversary party in Miami. That's the only time I've interacted with him. He's a pretty quiet and shy guy until you go up to him and talk to him for a little bit. Then he opens up. But Brad, on the other hand, he's always in and out of the offices, and I ran into him several times in the coffee break room. Miami 10, we had several pictures together. My dream had always been, and I will never own something like this ever. I drive a 2011 Toyota 4Runner, but my dream was always to drive a Lambo. And at the Miami 10 party, I rented a Lambo, and I almost got Brad to ride with me. But he was actually on his way to the yacht with the.
He was in another Lambo.
He was in the yacht Lambo. So he was busy. He would have came with me, but he was busy. But yeah, I rented a Lambo for like an hour or so to drive around Miami because it was cool.
Well, how was it? What was sir? Did you say you'll never get one after this experience?
Would never get one. Absolutely not. No, way too expensive. I owe someone a Lambo. If once XRP moons, I owe somebody a Lambo, but I'll never buy one for myself.
Is his name Ray Fuentes?
Yeah. I will still be driving my 2011 Toyota 4Runner. But it was fun. It was amazing to drive. My dad drove a NASCAR late model for a while, and I had always wanted to drive something really fast, and that's obviously the fastest car I've ever driven. But anyways, yeah, Brad and I had spent some time together. We talked. I hired one of his friends from college, and several executives for him. So yeah, we spent some time together. He's a cool guy.
Yeah. Like Shellfish says, Lambos for all. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I don't know. I think I'm more of a McLaren guy, but
nice.
hey, I'll take anything that goes faster than my Jeep. So, or actually, RIP to that. I sold my Jeep not too long ago and got my wife a new Audi e-tron. So it's got some speed and I love driving that thing. But anyways, thanks Shellfish for the comment. Now, Sean, I do want to shift gears here because ultimately we still have a lot to talk about. And I want to bring up your, let's see here, your LinkedIn, because ultimately you've had a colorful background, working at Google, working at Amazon, and most recently Ripple. Of those three entities, which I just referenced, which was the most impactful for your career, providing you with the most experience?
Yeah, I would say Amazon. I spent a little over 5 years at Amazon, and started my career doing international events for AWS. Spent a lot of time in Australia, recruiting several folks to come work for AWS in Seattle, building out the AWS infrastructure team. So that was a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Grew a ton.
In what ways?
Yeah, I think it was. I was afforded a lot of flexibility. So I really hung on to the Amazon leadership principles and understood that, you really needed to have values and leadership principles to succeed in business. And you needed to, you not only needed to hone your own craft, but you really needed to understand holistically the business and how the business operated to be really good at what you did. So I made it a point to understand more holistically how the business operated, what the the financials meant to my role and what success meant as a part of my role to the overall business. So it was important to me to understand what the landscape looked like in the future and how my role played a part in the success of those products. So, as a talent acquisition professional, what does success look like in these roles? Do we actually need a VP in this role, or do we need a director in this role? And, really making a connection with these executives and understanding the needs of their team. And, how does their team look 2 to 3 years down the road? And how are we building out, these ginormous teams of, sometimes 1,000 people? And what does that structure look like? What do the spans and layers look like? If we're looking at promotions, if we're looking at attrition, if we're looking at certain things down the road, how does that factor into the growth of the organization? And what do we need to look at in terms of levels? And if we're going to hire directors, if we're going to hire managers, what do the layers need to look like underneath those folks? And we need to think about university candidates. We need to think about entry level candidates. We need to think about several different things that come into play. So those things are all things that I learned at Amazon.
Let's
promotions.
let's dissect that a little bit more, because that's a perfect lead into my next question, where what are some of those big, well, two parts, some of those big significant changes in the job market that you've noticed being a talent acquisition, having that front row seat, and what are some of those key qualities or values you kind of touched on that, but let's just say that are more often than not overlooked by your peers in the talent acquisition. So again, what are some big changes, and what are some significant changes in the job market and values that you think are overlooked in the hiring process?
Yeah, I think since the pandemic, there's been a lot of automation, I would say, that's happened within the hiring process. When I first started 17 years ago, I was given a phone book, and we didn't even have laptop computers, right? We had desktop computers.
This is how long ago?
This was 17, 18 years ago.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I mean, LinkedIn was brand new. It wasn't even, I don't even think LinkedIn was around. Maybe it was just brand new, just starting. So, we were using, I think, Monster and, gosh, I don't even remember the other ones. Those were the job boards back in the day. So things have definitely changed from 18 years ago, right? Where we're using phone books to find jobs. You're using your family, friends, or network, and people were staying in their jobs a lot longer. Now people are staying in their jobs for 2 to 5 years, and then moving on to their next opportunity, and their next opportunity for growth or advancement. Automation is there. AI is taking over, for STEM jobs and writing and business. So those are major changes. There's automation happening in customer service and food service. Those are big changes that I've seen. There's I think right now I think there's a lack of skilled trades, electricians, plumbers. People are moving away from the skilled trades and moving into the digital realm. But there's still a lack of expertise in the digital realm. So I've seen
What do you mean by that? The lack of expertise in the digital realm? Is it because because this industry is still nascent and has yet to get that wonderful talent over into this ecosystem?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And I think there's going to be more needs within that space, within this space. As AI evolves, as we become more digital, as blockchain and crypto takes off, as everything moves into the digital space, as we're seeing right now, there's going to be a need for that.
Now, well, thank you for sharing. And I believe there's been significant changes in the overall job market. I mean, even why I'm in this seat today is prior to coming into this blockchain, before my previous employer at Link2, I was in insurance for 10 years. And so when COVID hit, we were forced to work remotely, and we
Right.
weren't set up for success in that real-time transition. Actually, fortunately, I was already leveraging laptops and such, but I was
Sure.
working alongside my father, who was definitely a few weeks or months to transition into that at-home
Yeah.
environment. And we were still leveraging fax machines, and all DocuSign was just coming into the fold about 5 years before that, so which was also a significant change in how we conducted business and operated. And so seeing in food for thought, 2 live streams ago, I had the opportunity to interview Sunil from XDC Trade Network, and also his sidekick at Creedor. But where I'm getting at is, they were talking about how they're following this M letter standard, which basically, to me, I would boil it down to it almost being like the ISO for moving value and data for financial institutions. It's the same type of standard for entities to move data that's in regards to or related to trade finance. And so I just think that because of these new standards and ways of doing business, it's going to define how market participants like Ripple, Creedor, XDC Trade Network, how they operate and navigate this
Sure.
landscape. But before I lose my train of thought here, I still want to talk about what are some of those values that are overlooked today in the job market as we become more dependent on these digital resources, laptops, or become more independent. What are some of these qualities that you think would really set these individuals up for success, or that are being overlooked by peers that you may have honed in on?
Yeah, I think I always kind of go back to some of the Amazon leadership principles, like ownership. It's super important to have ownership, right? Like someone that says that that never says that's not my job. You have to have ownership. Be willing to jump in and do anything to get the job done. Even if it's something that you don't normally do on a daily basis, or if it's something that someone that works for you normally does, someone that you manage, or someone above you, someone that manages you. So ownership is important. I think diving deep, making sure that it's not just surface level, that you dive deeper and understand, the root cause of things before trying to solve a problem. I think, when I'm hiring someone, I'm always looking for somebody that's, 50%, better than 50% of the people that are already in that position, right? Like, are they better than 50% of the people that are already in the job? If so, that means they're raising the bar. At Amazon, I was a bar raiser. And if anybody knows what that is, it's, on every interview at Amazon, there's one person that's on that interview panel, and usually it's 5 people on an interview panel. There's one person that's on that interview panel that's not a part of that interview team, not a part of the team that you're going to be joining. So it's an independent interviewer, someone that has additional training as an interviewer. I did over 160 interviews in 1 year as a bar raiser, and it's basically it's a very important role, and that role is to really drive the interview debrief. It's to ensure that you're hiring the best for Amazon, that you're raising the bar with each hire, and that you're diving in deeper to the questions that you're asking. You're asking behavioral questions, and you're asking for real world examples. So if people that you're interviewing are giving you specific examples, you're able to dive in deeper to those, ask follow-up questions, and they're able to eloquently answer those questions and give you those follow-up answers. And they're able to do that where it's, raising the bar based on, and you're asking questions based on leadership principles. So if I'm asking an ownership question, give me give me an example of a time when you did this,
Mm.
and they're giving you a specific example. After you do 160 of those interviews, you're able to read people pretty well. You're able to decipher when they're raising the bar, when they're lowering the bar, when they're meeting the bar. So, after a while, you're able to tell when they're doing those certain things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, and I
Sure.
appreciate that. You actually inspired another question. You know, coming from Link to my former employer, they have on their platform many high quality portfolio companies, and I'm sorry to bring up past employments, but I wanted to help frame this question that you inspired off the cuff, because with these new changes in the job market, in the way that, I mean, even the opportunities for employment, as those may change, because as you mentioned, with the adoption of AI and other extremely life-changing technologies, let's just bucket it like that, excuse me for lack of better words. I want to say, like, even for instance, what we're doing right now is creating content and leveraging these new systems. There's companies on their platform on Link2's that were on the cusp of this creator-like economy that's being developed. And do you think that there's something there with this new creator-like economy where someone even like me or others, these influencers that are creating content, leveraging these live stream systems, uh, tapping into these new resources that are being really tooled on in real time? So what are your thoughts on the adoption of these new types of systems, bringing that into the job hiring practices, or how you validate an individual? Do you think we're going to be more dependent on these systems as we move into this creator like economy, if indeed that's something that you think we're moving towards? What are your thoughts?
As part of a hiring process, is that the question?
No, just a potentially, if you think that this is going to become more prevalent in how you qualify an individual, or do you think that we're even moving towards this creator-like economy where we're just scratching the surface of what could become? I mean, we've seen how influencers on TikTok or Instagram, or even
Oh
on
yeah.
how they've created a wonderful income for themselves. But I mean,
Oh,
is
100%.
is this also just kind of like the beginning or the birth of this new, like I mentioned, creator type economy?
It's just the beginning. I mean, look at what it's doing to the
And
mainstream
and,
media.
and then and also follow up question on this. So what is Ripple influencing this at all with the micro cross border transactions and things of that nature? Because would that help the adoption of this, with being able to pay people in this creator like economy as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's all becoming this one ecosystem. But I think, kind of going back, it's look what's happening to the mainstream media, and what this kind of creator economy, creator ecosystem is doing to the mainstream media. Uh, it's destroying it. I mean, I think platforms like X, Twitter are having a big impact on that. But I think because of X, it's giving up, and YouTube giving a platform for content creators and independent journalism. I think we're going to continue to see more of that. But you're right. I think it's just the beginning. For people to kind of take control. But it kind of goes along with the theme of independence, financial independence, independent journalism, kind of taking back control. It goes along with that theme, right?
I think you're 100% on point, and I want to bring up onto the screen right now. Give me 1 second, Sean. Your point of the power of social media, and also to the to the meat and potatoes of today's conversation on, or what I believe that a lot of people would love to hear about, is leveraging X to get out a point of view in real time that could be then picked up by other people or peers in the industry, potentially other individuals that have a platform as well. But you recently put out a tweet or an X post about the price suppression of XRP. Thoughts about what's going on with XRP? Is the government or a three-letter agency using this potentially to sway people's perception of this new and emerging asset class? Are they using it to suppress the XRP real price? What are your thoughts on price suppression, piggybacking off the previous conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, banks are not going to adopt and use an asset in a hostile regulatory landscape. Period. Like that's just not going to happen. Wind Moon.
Thanks, Brad.
There's too much risk. There's politics involved, and there's too much uncertainty involved. So institutions and banks are just not going to touch it, and not going to. And they've probably signed NDAs. There's probably other things that are preventing them from making it public that they're working with Ripple using XRP or plan to use XRP. And because of the fact that the SEC has sued Ripple and Gary and Elizabeth Warren and their anti-crypto army have picked favorites and gone after, decided to go after Ripple and XRP. Yes, they are therefore purposely suppressing the price of XRP.
Do you think it's because they want to? Do they want to buy it at these suppressed prices, or what are your thoughts?
I won't speculate on that. I'll let other people do that.
Okay.
But there's the fact of the matter is banks and institutions will not take the risk of using an asset when it's under when there's when there's a hostile regulatory landscape. Mm-hmm. Period.
Yeah. So and then also with the asset being reported as zero on their balance sheets, I would assume that needs to be revised and
yes.
I want. Yeah. What regulations would need to come into fold for the banks? Because I think that was under the Fit 21 bill was going to require the banks or financial institutions to report digital assets on their balance sheet, but that's been since scrubbed. So maybe would that then be implemented through the Stablecoin Act or SAB?
I think so. Yeah, it's. What is it? SAB 121.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that there's going to be. So, do you think that is what's going to then encourage some type of surge in the market or flip the switch moment, whatever you want to boil it down as?
Yes, I think that's the next phase, right? We need regulatory clarity in the United States. We need the case to end, and then we need regulatory clarity in the United States.
It with all this going on. And making it appear that, I've had the opportunity to interview J. Christopher Giancarlo, former CFTC chairman at XRP Las Vegas, who I believe would be a great candidate for the next SEC chair.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. He's going to be it. He's a great man. I had a wonderful conversation with him and his lovely wife.
It needs to be somebody outside of the current, the current leadership and within the SEC.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I where was I going with this? He mentioned no. Speaking of J. Christopher Giancarlo, shoot, now I lost my train of thought because ultimately I wanted to. Let me chew on this for a second, because ultimately he is a great candidate. We spoke to about the fact that I want to say as much as we think that the USA is a laggard in this whole evolution of blockchain, they were, as oh goodness, the founder of the Digital Chamber, what is her name? Perry Ann
Molly?
Boring.
Oh,
No, Perry, yeah, Perry Ann Boring. What she had mentioned on even at XRP Las Vegas as well was that, as we all know, that the US was a big contributor in the evolution or development of the internet. So to the fact that here we are, a laggard in the evolution of payment rails built on top of the internet, I don't see that occurring. But what I spoke with, what I spoke with J. Christopher Giancarlo about was the fact that, hey, obviously the US is the last to adopt regulations or implement them. Meanwhile, there's other geographies or jurisdictions where it's been greenlit or they're in pilot modes. It just depends where you're at in this world. But what I look at it as is pilots or test.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Experiments basically on how this technology would impact those local geographies or jurisdictions. And so I think that maybe it's strategic that we are waiting for things to get implemented, potentially because we can see what's going on in the marketplace and how, as mentioned, things impact that local environment. Do you think?
Yeah,
I
think that's a good. Yeah, that's a good theory. I mean, it could be that. It could be that, and I think obviously they're staying close to what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Singapore, and other places where they're much further ahead in terms of regulations. And staying close to what's happening and what's being tested. And I know Ripple is very, very, very close to all of those things. And they are at the forefront of those regulatory advancements in Europe and Singapore, and have quite the knowledge base built up. So no doubt if things were to happen and changes were needed here in the U.S., that those individuals would be ready to make those changes.
So do you think having said this, do you think it's safe to say that the institutions have been in this technology for quite some time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Testing, exploring, experimenting. Absolutely. Yes.
So then we hear, a mainstream where they're saying down with the DLT, down with blockchain. That's a narrative that is to sway who? What's the purpose of that? Oh, you mentioned is potentially to suppress or sway an individual or class of individuals away from this emerging asset. Do you think that's going to help encourage this wealth transfer? Because if you're having one demographic, let's call it the baby boomers, not looking as much or consuming as much content that's being disseminated through a mobile phone, and they're watching Fox on TV or whatever they're watching. But meanwhile, let's call it the true narrative, hopefully, fingers crossed and toes, that it's being disseminated through mobile apps, through environments or productions like this. Do you think that this is all by design, that there's information being disseminated through various channels?
Yeah, I think so. In some ways, yes. And I think that transfer of wealth that you mentioned is certainly going to happen if that's the case, right? Because it's being disseminated by people like you and me, and not by people like our parents and our grandparents. So that certainly could be the case, right? And if you look at things from that perspective, then yes. But you also have to think about some other scenarios too, and other reasons why that could be happening.
Would you be willing to share why?
Maybe.
Come on, Sean.
I think that's a good theory. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I appreciate that. What I put on the screen right now is cryptolaw.us. This is John Deaton's website, where they have basically a repository of great clips that help support I would say, the narrative that of what we've just been discussing, people being in the know, influencing others. The tech is real, it's getting adopted, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, what I have on screen is I want to talk about what are your thoughts regarding the current SEC chair, Gary Gensler's position as of late in regards to, well, actually, before that, let's talk about what do you think has caused Gary Gensler's stance or position on XRP and Ripple versus his today versus his, or formerly versus today, where he's not even talking about this. What do you think's encouraging this type of behavior from a man that was a big proponent or promoter of XRP Ripple through his MIT courses? That's online, that's on screen here. I'll be sure to share links in the description of this video later. But what do you think is what's encouraging this type of behavior by him?
It's unreal. Well, first of all, you gotta go back a little ways, right? And he was CTFC. He was the chairman of the CTFC, right? Under the Obama administration, and he before that was a professor at MIT. I think something happened in between there, and he got in the clutches of the Obama cronies, and was turned.
You think he got one of those nice padded handshakes?
Well, he's worth $150 million now. He's 66 years old. He's going to retire, I think, after this. But I think his wealth drastically increased over the last several years. You have to wonder where all that money came from.
Like Pelosi, similar types of money moves.
Similar.
They have the same husband. I'm kidding. Excuse me.
That'd be funny. Yeah, you don't really know. He's a very private person. So you don't know a whole lot about his personal life.
Interesting.
Except for his daughter a little bit. But there's some shadiness happening in the background, his dealings with the FTX and the ETHgate stuff that I can't touch on. But there's some things I think we'll likely hear more after his resignation, but I think the cronies got to him, and I think the government bureaucrats probably got to him.
Interesting. That's interesting. I know you can't touch on ETHgate. It seems to be a very sensitive subject, but would you be willing to opine on why Bitcoin and Ethereum have been given the green pass when potentially the XRPL tech, which has already been proven more decentralized, faster payments, the optionality of or potential implementation of hooks for smart contracts? What do you think is? It's almost like I believe the XRPL is a chain that it has the ability to take on some of the best attributions of other chains, because we see that occurring, or based on past performances and practices. Do you think that is this kind of the same situation where the U.S. is a laggard, or is it the same tech is waiting to be implemented or improved upon by seeing what's going out in the marketplace?
Well, I think it's funny that people say the tech is outdated. I think it's ahead of its time, and I think it's being slow adopted. I think it's funny that I have trouble getting any government official to even talk about it or mention it. I'm connected to Congress people. I'm connected to senators. I know personally some senators and congressmen who won't even touch it or talk about it, which is weird.
They won't touch XRP, Ripple, blockchain in general.
Touch won't talk about it. They just won't even. They won't even talk about it.
The overall tech, or specifically XRP and Ripple?
Specifically XRP.
Yeah, interesting.
It's just weird. Like they won't
Yeah.
even, like I'll bring it up in a conversation or ask them to talk about it, and they won't even talk about it. Like, why?
Maybe Richard's on the money here.
I think so. There's something happening behind the scenes that
Or maybe crypto navigators on this, NDAs, maybe a little bit of both.
I think both. Yeah. So, like I said, when the case ends, I think, and I've said this to numerous people, like people that, are anti-Ripple or anti-XRP, that are constantly bashing against XRP or Ripple. We're going to find out more once the case ends. Like the cards are going to be on the table. They're going to be out there. There's going to be no more excuses. Like, the partnerships are going to be unveiled. The blindfolds are going to be off, and, we're going to know what's out there, who they're working with. And no more hiding, I guess you could say. So everyone will have a better understanding of what's happening.
I think you're on point with that. I have on screen a quick clip of a gentleman named Versan Algera from Black Swan Capital, a capitalist. I had the opportunity of spending quality time with him at the Quantum Summit in Cape Canaveral. He leaned in on Tether, saying it's a bubble waiting to burst. It seems that whenever Bitcoin goes up in price, there was a distribution of tethers into the market, pumping pumping the sales of Bitcoin. What are your thoughts? Do you think that there is a tactical demolition still yet to be had involving Tether, pursuant to the MiCA regulations that were recently distributed or brought into the fold? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's scary to think about. It's if they're not fully backed, then yeah, it's a bubble waiting to burst for sure. And I mean, I don't know a whole lot. I'm not as well versed on Tether as I am at other things, but it sounds like they're in some trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, which would only, I would assume, position Ripple and Circle to position them well in that environment, or due to those circumstances. Now, I know that we're about an hour into this.
Already.
I still have a few more questions, and I'd love to play a clip, including John Deaton. Can I borrow another 15 to 30 minutes of your time potentially?
Yes.
Awesome. I appreciate you. On that point, let me switch gears here. Sean, I want to play a quick video of the White Knight, the man, the myth, the legend, John Deaton, and I'd love to pick your brain in regards to John Deaton and Deaton for Senate here. I'm going to play this clip. Hang on. It's a minute long. Appreciate your patience.
Freedom is truly on the line, and what we're facing in this country. I don't recognize the country. When you look at me, you really are looking at the living, walking, breathing embodiment of the American dream and everything that's possible, even if it's difficult. And I see that dream dying. Massachusetts is ground zero. This crisis of illegal immigration is so far out of control. The governor's asking people to open their homes. They're taking rec centers away from the poor to house illegal migrants. 34 trillion in debt, over $1 trillion in credit card debt, 1.6 trillion in student loan debt. 40% of Americans don't have $500 in case they face an emergency. Overseas seems to be slipping in chaos. Opioid addiction. All of these things are happening, but the greatest crisis we face is a crisis of leadership. These Washington elites, career politicians like Elizabeth Warren are ruining the country. They fuel division, keeping us divided, fighting about the little things we disagree just to keep power.
Man, what a powerful clip. That was John Deaton at XRP Las Vegas. Apologies for the little echo. I'm recording from an iPhone 15, but
I thought that was Elizabeth Warren hooting in the background.
No, John,
no, not John.
Oh man, exactly. What are your thoughts? You think John has the chops to dethrone Miss Pocahontas?
I think he's the only one, honestly. And this is a guy that I fully support. I met him in Las Vegas. I gave him a Gary Gensler clown shirt, and I donated to his campaign. He's a guy that I can fully get behind, and someone that I have a lot of similarities with. He grew up poor, in a family that he's raised by his mother, single family home in Detroit in a very poor neighborhood. He put his, strapped his boots on and worked his way up, became a lawyer, went into the Marines. He's a girl dad like us, man. And he's fighting for the American people. He's a true American, and somebody that is focused on the right things. He understands where the problems are, and he has solutions for those problems. And he knows where Elizabeth Warren has gone wrong, and he knows how to fix those issues for the people of Massachusetts, and people need to be fully behind him.
100%. I believe John is, like you mentioned, the only man that's going to be able to dethrone Elizabeth Warren. And I had a really great conversation with him at the benefits dinner put on by the Digital Chamber, Perry and Boring and her team, and I tapped John on the shoulder. I say, "Hey, John, I think you're going to win." He goes, "Why you think that, Ray?" And because I think I caught him off guard, and I said, "Because Elizabeth Warren's already saying your name, and you haven't even, you just announced that you're throwing your hat in the ring, and the fact that she's already paying this close attention to you it just proves that the incumbency is scared." And so I believe that no better way to rally a voice or a community around an individual, especially a guy that's liberating 75,000 XRP holders globally. And it's just, on that topic, I got to ask you, what are your thoughts? Do you think that crypto by design was to get people involved into investing in politics? Not trying to shift gears away from John, but do you think that, because for someone like me, do you think it was to get a specific demographic of individuals voting? As some people are trucking in migrants, are people also encouraging others through other means?
I think it might be a byproduct of that, right? Like I think it's, again, a part of this ecosystem of this independence, this freedom, kind of goes back to that, right? But it might very well be the last hope for the middle class, as part of any sort of financial freedom or independence. But yeah, I can see that, and I can see why people are turning it into a single vote issue, and why President Trump sees this as an important industry, as an important topic, as an important campaign issue, and why he switched his views on this, and why it's important to switch your view on this. So yeah, I do see this as kind of perhaps the last freedom financially for the middle class.
Really great comment. Another inspired question coming off the cusp, Sean. As you mentioned that there's this need to rebuild the middle class, and I'm not trying to plug my former employer or anything like that, but it's very interesting where they're targeting a demographic of investors that aren't even aware of what the accredited investor requirements are. Meanwhile, you got John Deaton, who's here to try and abolish them, because it is a barrier to entry for anyone to basically invest into these up and coming tech enabled private companies, which have been, statistically proven to provide a consistent and greater return than other investment sectors. And so what are your thoughts on market participants or new and emerging platforms like a Link2 or a Coinbase, or like a Coinbase, where it enabled you to invest in your Bitcoin like you did very earlier on? And keep in mind, when you did invest into Bitcoin and you leveraged Coinbase back in 2014, Coinbase had IPO'd on Link2's platform in 2021 at the height of the Bitcoin bull market back then. What were your thoughts when you saw Coinbase IPO, or since you knew about them before that? What did it validate everything that you've been thinking up until that moment? Did you want to even participate in that potential IPO offering on Link2's platform? I'm not trying to sway any individuals or provide any investment advice, but when you see those opportunities, knowing of your past experiences, what were the thoughts going on in your mind?
Kicking myself in the ass. What are you talking about? No, I always go back to, so there was a guy by the name of Tyson Lamoureux at Amazon. He was one of the first hires at AWS infrastructure. And, the guy's worth millions of dollars, but, he got in early on Amazon stock, and he cashed out his first stock grant to buy a new car. And he always he told the story that, that first stock grant would have been worth like, several $1 million if he hadn't cashed it out at the time that he told the story. But instead he cashed it out and bought a car. That was it a
Lambo?
No, it was not. Like a Nissan Altima or something. And it was worth like $17,000. So, it's one of those, it's exciting to see those things. But again, being an accredited investor on Link2, you have to make a certain amount of money to be on that platform, right? Like, so that I don't think you're middle class to be an investor on Link2, right? Like you've got to make like $250,000, something like that. You probably know more than I do.
You're right. There's a high barrier to entry. It's either $1 million in liquid assets, $2 million or $200,000 annual income, or you have a household joint income of $300,000. You have to meet these requirements for your two most recent years. So so you got to throw up some big numbers, not just for 1 year, but 2 years, and even to build to get to that point is a feat in itself. So I'm picking up what you're putting down, and that's why John, who has articulated, and so hey, I can go and fight for my country, but I can't fight for my own well-being, my own investment portfolio. That's
financial freedom. Yeah,
financial freedom. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's where this comes in. That's where this industry comes in. That's where we can save the middle class. And I think that's where these investment opportunities, that's where I think the future of this industry is very important for the middle class.
Well, let's also talk about another utility purpose that this asset class or technology can also revolutionize through the governance mechanism or systems within blockchain for voting rights. How can blockchain influence and impact the elections?
Yeah, so I know there's controversy around it, right? Like. Mm-hmm. I know MIT wrote a paper on this. Several people in MIT wrote a paper, and said in that paper that it shouldn't be used for voting. Well, I don't know. I think there's advantages to it. I think that it could provide safety and security for voting. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, and from your perspective, what your thoughts would be in terms of registering and voting, and how that could be more safe and secure.
Well, I mean, if it was all done through a digital portal and rather than having to go into a third party, I mean, cool. Could the computer systems and things like that be on a designated location? Absolutely. That would improve upon already from the systems that are already being leveraged, or was it Dominion voting systems, which were proven to
Right.
be hackable or uh, um, at least
Well, the boots made
manipulated.
in China. Where are they made? China or the Ukraine?
Who knows? Is that also a narrative to create division? It's regardless though. I feel like there's at least technologies in place that can circumvent these friction points in the overall voting process by the immutability qualities of blockchain, the transparency. And this also even I don't want to talk about the mainstream discussion points as of late, but even bringing into the fold of what's going on at the Olympics with how we're seeing transgender uh, uh,
Athletes.
athletes, yeah, participate in whatever sport. Let's say for this
Right.
conversation, boxing, and but even to participate in that arena, no pun intended. These athletes have to report the amount of estrogen levels that are in their
Yeah,
in
their
their in their
testosterone, their estrogen,
they got to report these qualities on them on a consistent basis. So why not then, if there's so much concern about the validity of these actual reports, then why not underpin them by blockchain and other systems where they can't be tampered with? They're, as mentioned, they're completely transparent. Do you think that what we're seeing in the mainstream media is also to help potentially poke at the bear or help conceptualize the utility that blockchain and these emerging technologies can provide the world?
yeah, I think we need to open up the eyes of the world to uh, the capabilities of the blockchain and the technology it can provide, the security it provides, the transparency it can provide in situations like this to eliminate any. I mean, there's so much back and forth going on. I'm sure you've seen it in your feed, right? With, oh, is it a male? Is it a female? Well, it's, if you have an X and a Y chromosome, you're a male. Let's put that to rest by having the transparency of the blockchain provide all that information to everyone. I mean, you've got two males fighting for a female boxing championship in the Olympics. Let's just put that out there for everyone to see transparently. If you have an X and a Y chromosome, you're a male. It's plain and simple. And if they want to fight against that, then make a separate. There's alternatives to this, right? Make a separate separate boxing bout for these individuals, if that's how they want to do it. But they should not be allowed in women's sports. Men should not be allowed to fight in women's sports. That's my opinion.
Sean,
You still got me?
you know what? I'm having some looks like I'm having some Wi-Fi issues over here. It kind of broke up for the past 30 seconds. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm still
Uh-oh.
here.
We're having you're still there? Okay, great. I don't know what's going on. It says I have full bars over here, but do you mind repeating the last 30 seconds of what you mentioned, just in case?
Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, I think the blockchain can provide transparency and security, and I think it provides. Can you still hear me? There's probably a delay.
Uh-oh.
I'm out here in the boonies, so it's probably my Wi-Fi.
Sorry, Sean. I think the Wi-Fi is getting a little hairy over here on my end. I apologize. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Sean, you there? Give me 1 second. Let's see if I can switch to.
Can you hear me okay?
You there, Sean? Sean? No. Jay. You there?
I'm here.
Well, we always producer. Let's
now
shift gears because I don't know if I didn't make up what you said. I couldn't hear what you said in regards to the blockchain and were you 30 seconds?
Oh, sorry, Ray. Now you're frozen on me. Say that again. There we go. Can you hear me?
Let's give Sean a couple more. Let's give him 30 seconds to try logging back on, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to give Sean 30 seconds to log back on. Hopefully we can get him on. We've got a few more questions that I believe you guys would love to hear before we close things out.
Sorry.
Thank you all for your patience. Sean.
I'm here.
Sean.
I'm here.
All righty. Hey, appreciate you sticking with me. Before I let you go, Sean, because I know that you got a busy day here, especially with their two lovely little ladies at the angels at the house. Can you hear me?
Bad Wi-Fi. Bad Wi-Fi.
Hey,
all
it's
good.
Okay.
All good.
I can hear. Great, and it's frozen on a beautiful smile of yours, so we can work with that.
Well, hey, Ray, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I guess I could end on thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. To end
Hey,
on, go ahead.
we'll have to have you back on. We'll have to have you back on, Sean. Okay, someone's saying we can hear Sean the whole time, but maybe the video is glitching on us or me. Regardless, though, it's been a really great conversation.
Same, yeah, for sure. I'd love to be back.
Yeah, like XRP mentioned, at least it started to act up towards the end of the interview because we were having a great conversation. Can you hear me, Sean?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, before I let you go here, with the reception that we have, let's end this on a fun and a great little conversation on closing comments on. But hopefully, we'll save anything else for later with better reception.
Sounds good. What was I missed that last part. This reception's great, Ray. Just adds to the awkward silence.
Yeah, I think we're still dealing with some stuff. No worries. What we'll do, Sean, we'll have to have you back and dive into some more content in regards to family vibes and
yes.
I said put it on YouTube. Yeah, I think it's YouTube that's acting up. I have a full reception here, and I'm sure you do as well. But we had a great conversation. You know who it's probably Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler throwing out bad vibes on our production here because we were getting too deep in the weeds.
I think so.
But regardless, though, it's been a pleasure having you on Sean, and I look forward to brushing elbows with you again very soon. Hopefully before the next XRP Las Vegas conference. That would be ideal. But if there's because right now it's still it says the matrix is the matrix is glitching. XRP will fix this. But regardless, though, Sean, can you make any final last comments before I let you go?
Thanks again for having me, Ray. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to the next time, and everybody have a safe and productive week ahead. It's going to be a fun one.
Awesome. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear what you said, but hopefully the audience can. And yeah, because I've got some friends they're tuning in right now. They're up in the air actually saying, "Hey, we can hear Sean," but the video is acting up. So maybe as much we'll chalk this up on YouTube and StreamYard. And but regardless, though, we had a great conversation today, Sean, and I appreciate you. And I wish you my very best and look forward to having you back on the show much sooner rather than later. Thank you very much. I'm going to take you off screen. If you could still hear me, hang on. Let's circle back and have a quick conversation after I close this live stream off. But I appreciate you. Thanks for joining today, sir. And apologies for the glitchiness here towards the end. It's been quite a great conversation and a wonderful learning lesson, not just to learn from somebody that's in the captain seat in the hiring process, but for somebody who's worked for a global fintech company like Ripple Labs. If you thought today's content was impactful, please make sure to smash the like and subscribe button, as it really helps me build this channel off the ground. If you have any questions for me or Sean, please feel free to leave those questions in the comment section below. I'll be back with another live stream next week on Tuesday, August 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern. I'll be interviewing Eddie Cullen, founder of Crescent. Big thanks to the XTC community for making the connection. I hope you all have a great rest of your Taco Tuesday. And again, thank you for tuning in. Love you mucho.
Thank you.